Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Off-Farm Income Podcast. Thank you very much for joining us here on our YouTube channel for episode number 810, another one of our Tuesday episodes. Well, I've just got a list of things today I want to go through with you guys and just give you an update and just kind of talk farming, talk small farming with you. After all, I am a small farmer. I'm not a big production ag guy. Certainly support it, but that is not the stage of farming business I find myself in. But I will tell you something that's been really interesting with this COVID-19 deal is the demand for meat off of the farm. Now, I almost never sell beef in the spring. Almost never. But this year was it was an anomaly for me, and I had 2 steers to sell in the spring, and I've never seen more demand, but it was right when the COVID thing hit. People were trying to fill their freezers, and it has been very, very interesting. I would be interested to hear what's going on in your area, because I know when I took in our last steer to our butcher, he was getting calls off the hook, people trying to buy meat. He didn't know if he was going to be able to buy enough steers to slaughter and to butcher to be able to meet all the demand he was getting. And of course, shelves had just emptied out on grocery stores. And this is continuing for me, even though grocery stores seem to kind of be getting back to normal now. I'm still getting calls from people I've never got calls from before, looking for meat, wanting to buy a half a beef, wanting to buy a whole beef or something like that right now. And I don't have anything to sell them. Traditionally we do everything in the fall. So it's been very interesting. And I'd love to get into the mindset of people and kind of understand what it is that they're thinking or what it is that they're doing in terms of, wanting to fill their freezers or moving into the future. Because those of us who live on our farms and our ranches and those of us who raise livestock, it's just a normal thing for us to have a freezer full of meat. We just constantly have a freezer full of meat or 2 freezers full of meat here on our place. And, buying meat at the grocery store is just not something that we do unless for some reason we run out. Sometimes we'll oversell and I won't be able to put as much in the freezer because I've sold it all, and then maybe we'll buy some. But by and large, we never buy meat at the grocery store. We've just got a freezer full. That's normal for us. And this goes back to when I was a police officer. When you're a police officer, you see something every day. You deal with people who are in the criminal element or who are committing crimes or who are lying or who are being victimized day after day after day after day. And you start to see the world through that lens. Well, those of us who raise livestock and we always have meat, fresh meat right there available to us, we start to see the world through that lens. And it's really interesting to me how people who don't think like that, if they're being kind of brought around to doing this, to keeping a freezer full of meat, and what impact is that going to have for local producers? And then, of course, with the different processing plants around the country being shut down because of COVID, and you're looking at just the unbelievable volatility in the beef and the pork markets, and what some of these poor farmers are having to do in terms of euthanizing animals and things like that is just incredible to me. And by the way, you guys, those of you who are involved in that, I cannot imagine. I am so sorry that this is happening, because I cannot imagine going through and euthanizing animals because you can't afford to keep raising them. You don't have a market to take them to. And that is a very, very unfortunate situation. I am so sorry to hear that that's happening. But with that said, it's creating all these disruptions in the normal supply chain, and I wish it was not happening. But the fact that it is happening is creating opportunities in the local food supply chain, and that is very interesting if you have anything to sell right now. I don't. We do everything in the fall, and so we have everything come ready in the fall, and so I don't have anything available. But it is very interesting what's going on. And again, those of you who are on the front end of the supply chain here, you're actually raising the livestock and having to go through this. I am very, very sorry. I cannot imagine doing that. So it's an interesting time. It's a very unfortunate time in a lot of ways. And it'll be interesting to see when we get back to normal. And I'm not using this term new normal. I don't like it. But when we get back to normal, it'll be interesting to see what I guess, what consumer behaviors change to, if they change, if people start wanting to stock their freezers with larger quantities of meat. Because if they do that, of course, it depends on where they're coming from. But certainly buying a half a beef is an economical way to go, or a whole beef or something like that. So interesting. And along the lines of this new and increased demand, or these changes that are going on out there and the things that we're seeing, we're making changes here. Going down to DMV Supply, which is our local farm and ranch retailer. You guys know I do a show for them. And, of course, they were sponsors of this show for a long, long time. And I still do that show for DMV Supply, by the way. But, going down to their place, to their store, man, they are busy. But they have been deemed essential throughout this whole process, and so they've never closed down. They've altered their hours a little bit and altered their practices a little bit, but they've never closed down, and man, are they busy. I mean, people are in there, but it's interesting. Gardening stuff is just flying off of the shelves. So definitely people are feeling insecure about food going forward, and a lot of people who have not done this maybe ever or in a long time are putting in gardens this year. And they're putting in significant gardens. It's very interesting because I have the inside scoop on what's going on and what's getting sold. And it is very interesting. And then everywhere you go, you're hearing about people can't find eggs, so people are buying up all the chicks. So DNB always gets they get a shipment of chicks, and they sell baby chicks in the spring, and those things flew out, no pun intended, they flew out of there because people say they can't, and this is what folks at DNB are telling me, people are saying they can't find eggs, so they're going to start raising backyard chickens so they have their own egg supply. So very interesting. As somebody who already raises their own food, I guess I'm not feeling the squeeze that people who are dependent on the grocery store are feeling. So it's really interesting, some of the behaviors that are changing. And along those same lines, and we did this before the pandemic hit, or maybe right at the beginning, but with no concerns or worries, we did this as a project for Hattie. We bought an incubator. And we were just learning how to do this. And if you guys have been listening to my FFA episodes, I've had a couple guests on recently who raise their own chickens and they incubate and hatch them. And I've had a lot of questions for them because this is a whole new world for me. I've never done this aspect of it. We've always just bought pullets and put them out there and let them start laying. Well, we bought an incubator, and we're going to start hatching our own eggs and raising chickens up and growing our laying flock and butchering the roosters and then selling pullets. And, this is really, it's a deal I struck with Hattie. I really am trying to get Hattie, she's 13 now, I'm trying to get her to be, enterprising in terms of the opportunities that are here on the farm for her. And this is one that we're doing. So I'm providing the equipment, I'm providing the feed, I'm paying the power bill, all of that type of stuff. She's doing all the work. She's doing all the research and learning, and then we're splitting the profits. And so we've started this little enterprise together. Well, we just hatched our first chick. Yes, singular chick. I mean, we are such incredible rookies at this. And, of course, if you listened to my episode last week, you heard me asking all the questions and realizing, we screwed this up. And so this first batch we did, we only hatched one chick. So this poor chick is just all by itself. It totally is marked Hattie as its mother, and I hope it turns out to be a hen, because if it's a rooster, that's going to be a sad day. But anyway, we've kind of got this figured out, or we're getting better at getting this figured out now. So we're going to do a full batch here coming up, which we don't have a big incubator. I think we can do 41 chicks. We can put 41 eggs in there. So we're going to be doing that, and we're going to be selling pullets, and hopefully this is a very, very good enterprise for Hattie. I'm looking forward to that, but it was kind of cool to hatch our own chick, even though we only hatched one. And I know you're sitting there, all of you are out there going, man, we're sophisticated farmers, Matt. You sound like you don't know what you're doing. I'll tell you what, in a lot of ways, I don't have any clue. My strengths have always been in beef cattle, and that seems to where things seem to be for me. And but as I learn more about pigs, learn more about goats, and now chickens, I tend to catch on. I tend to catch on. But this chicken thing this is brand new for us. Never has been an interest of mine, but it is kind of interesting now, so we're going to do that. So that is very interesting to me in terms of raising chickens. I have no problem raising chickens, incubating them, hatching them out, and then later butchering them. And, of course, they're not Cornish cross. They're a combination of what we got here laying and our rooster. And so they're not Cornish cross, and they're not going to be that super fast-growing, delectable meat. But in terms of chicken soup or whatever, I think it'd be great. So that's something, I don't know, I'm looking forward to that too. It's all fun for me, all of the time. Well, hey, everybody, I want to make sure and mention our sponsors. Of course, Powder River Livestock Handling Equipment. You can find them over at powderriver.com. I love my Powder River equipment. I've known about these guys for, it seems like my whole life. But absolutely just a fan of this company. We, of course, use their squeeze chute and their livestock panels out here with our cattle. We want you to do the same. Let your local farm and ranch retailer know you want to see that Powder River green in their sales yard so you can buy the finest in livestock handling equipment, and you can check out everything they've got to offer you over at powderriver.com. And, of course, Lacrosse Footwear. So proud to have these guys as a sponsor. What a great company, going back all the way to the 19th century. Started out making rubber horseshoes. Really, really interesting. I'm sure at that point in time, somebody was like, this is it. This is the $1 million idea, or whatever people said in 1897. This is the $100,000 idea. Rubber horseshoes. This is going to change equestrian travel forever. They didn't know the car was just right around the corner. But hey, they pivoted. They evolved like you should all do in your small agricultural businesses. And now they make absolutely the finest neoprene-based rubber boot you can find, plus a myriad of other rubber shoes, rubber boots for every single need you have. Hip waders, all sorts of great stuff. You can find them at lacrossefootwear.com. Done right since 1897, Lacrosse Footwear has been making quality boots for hunting, working, and tending the land for over a century. Well, I said a moment ago that it's all fun for me. I just started irrigating. And now, if you've been with me for any length of time, you know how I feel about irrigating. It is just a huge thorn in my side. I'd love to farm somewhere where I did not have to irrigate. I know I'm looking that gift horse in the mouth. You don't have to tell me. I know. But man, it is a pain in my rear. So my pump went out. I had to get a new pump. I just got that back on Friday afternoon, and then we reinstalled it on Friday evening, had the electrician come back over and wire it on Saturday morning, and I fired it up yesterday morning as you're listening to this and got my irrigation going. The good news is things seem to be working well. The new pump is a pleasure. It is so efficient as compared to the pump on its last legs, the last pump I had. Now, it's the same exact pump motor. It's the same exact pump, the same exact impeller. I cannot believe the improvement in performance and efficiency that I had lost, that had been degraded over the years, and quite honestly, because I'd neglected that previous pump. And we have cottonwood trees out here. All that cotton had blown in, it had overheated, and it just performed less and less efficient. And I was wondering what was going on. I was blaming all sorts of external variables, thinking I wasn't getting enough water from the canal, all this type of stuff. And as it turns out, it was the efficiency of the pump, which is really, really interesting to me how all this goes together. So anyway, I started irrigation yesterday morning. So far, it is going pretty good. I've got my new wheel line over on our house side of our place. So if you don't remember, we've got a creek that kind of runs through the middle of the place. One half of the place is alfalfa. There's a wheel line out there. And then we had solid set sprinkler pipe over on our pasture side by the house. I just got rid of all of that solid set, and I replaced it with a wheel line I bought at an auction. And, of course, no two wheel lines seem to be the same, so I'm learning some new intricacies about this new wheel line and getting that going. But anyway, things seem to be going well, and I am optimistic that irrigation's going to be better this year. We make improvements year after year after year, but it is going, and, man, that marks the occasion. We have had this dry, not super hot spring, but a dry spring, although we're supposed to have a 90-degree day tomorrow, which is incredible for us in April. But anyway, So it's time to get irrigating. I'm about 10 days behind everybody else because of our pump issue, and my place definitely needs the water. So I am very, very happy to be getting water out on our place. That is very, very needed. So that is a current development on our place, and it always marks the beginning of a great summer growing season. Always enjoy that. Well, it's been interesting. We went out last weekend. We bought Hattie's lambs for 4-H. Now, she did not make weight last year. So this year we bought 2. I mean, we are on the ball. We are going to make weight. That is the goal. But right now, it does look like we're going to have a fair. It looks like we're going to have an actual, not virtual, but actual livestock event this late July and an actual sale. Now, that's the hope. That is the hope. But with that said, there is no weigh-in, as there traditionally is, and so our 4-H leader had to come over and actually tag the lambs for us, and we've got to take all these different like profile pictures, like we're booking these sheep into gel, and then fill out the forms and send those in. So there's no weigh-in this year, which means there will be no prizes at our fair for average daily gain or anything like that. So it'll be a little bit different this year, but we're going to get it done. And the talk is that we should be able to do everything as close to normal as possible this July at our fair. It'd be interesting. I think most of you are probably in the same boat as us. You're probably going to have your fair. But I think I did read this morning or maybe yesterday that the California State Fair has officially been canceled. So it's not happening this year. I think I read that. I mean, that's big. That is big. I can remember going to the California State Fair as a kid. I can remember the kids from our local 4-H group that did well enough to be able to go and show at the California State Fair and how big a deal that was. A guy from Valley Home, Will Cockrell, a guy I grew up with, he actually had the grand champion steer at the California State Fair back in the 1980s. I think I was only 10 or 11 years old. And that was a big deal. McDonald's bought it. There was pictures of Will in every McDonald's we went into. It was really, really cool. And so to have that shut down and to lose that for the year, that is significant. I hope that's not happening where you're at. I suspect in the Midwest that we are leaning towards still having our state fairs. Actually, have been seriously looking at going out to the Iowa State Fair this year in August and watching one of our guests in his final competition as a senior. So I'm hoping that that's still a possibility. I haven't been able to commit to doing that yet, but it's definitely on my radar, and so I'm hoping that is still a possibility and everything. But as of right now, we've got Jackpot Shows going on out here in Idaho with kids showing lambs and things like that, and I'm sure it's the same where you're at. I know it is, and I know there's a lot of fairs that have been canceled in different parts of the country because you guys have them this time of year. And you have them early because your climates are different than ours. And I'm sorry that you have lost out on those. But it has been interesting to hear about the Jackpot Shows. Hattie does not compete in those, but they're doing those. At least here, they're doing them virtually. And it's not live. Like, it's not on a Facebook live event or a Zoom or something like that. It's taped. So that's really interesting. And I applaud them for doing this because they're still giving these kids the ability to go out and to compete and to show their lambs in one way or another. But it is interesting, now that it's being filmed, you could do it over and over and over again and keep filming it until you got it just right. I mean, like if you were making a movie, you could do take 1, take 2, take 3, take 4, and go, that's a good take, and you could submit that. So it's a whole different world of doing it. Hopefully it doesn't stay this way, but very interesting to think about taping what you're doing and having the chance to kind of redo that or have a do-over and submit your best work. So it's interesting, and I guess you could look at it one way and kind of have a negative viewpoint of that, or you could look at it another way and go, man, with the ability to do this over, you might get these kids who are really working hard to get it better and to get it better and really refining those skills. So, I don't know. It's interesting. We'll see how it all plays out, but my hat's off to the people who are finding a way to make it possible for these kids to still compete, still work with their animals, even in lieu of all these COVID shutdowns. Well, everybody, that is all I've got for you on this, another one of our Tuesday episodes. I hope you enjoyed that. I always love visiting with you, so thank you for being there for us and letting me ramble on about everything going on in my agricultural world. I'd love to hear what's going on in yours. And everybody, as always, enjoy your journey to the ultimate lifestyle business, agriculture.